All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Ask an Employer with Parkland's Support for Workforce Training Program, which is part of our Get That Job webinar series here at the Champaign Public Library. My name is Jordan Neal, and I am the career librarian here at the library, so thank you all for joining us. For the latest library news and updates, please visit our website, champaign.org, or you could follow us on social media if that's an option for you. You could email us at librarian@champaign.org, or you can chat with us just by visiting the homepage of our website. The library is open, and we are also offering our curbside services. So again, just give us a call, or you can email us for more information. Moving on to a couple of Zoom features available to you that might help during this particular webinar. There are some buttons or icons at the bottom of your Zoom screen, depending on your device. On the far left, you have the options that control your sound or your speaker. Moving to the right and within the center of the window includes a chat and raised hand option. You can use these options to ask us questions or share any comments. I'm sure our presenter will pause for any questions, but it might be helpful to wait till the end of the presentation because they might cover them. We invite you to type your question into the chat or raise your hand, and we can unmute you if you prefer to speak and ask your questions. I would also like to remind everyone that our webinars are recorded, so please be mindful when you do share those questions and comments. Finally, I would like to introduce our presenter, Jordan Johnson, who is a career counselor for Parkland's Support for Workforce Training, or SWFT, as some people know it. Jordan will certainly share more information, but this program provides support for short-term training that leads participants to employment in high-demand fields such as healthcare, I think technology-related services, construction, manufacturing, things like that. So Jordan, thank you for joining us today, and I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me on, and I'm glad to kind of represent Parkland and the SWFT program in particular. I'm going to share my presentation. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about the SWFT program and SWFT or certificate programs in general, and kind of what they are and how they fit in with like what we do at SWFT. And if you're thinking about where you want to apply, how certificates may or may not fit into your career plan. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the program at Parkland, what are certificates, how they can help your career, and then how to end up choosing and settling on a particular certificate program if you think that's something you want to get into. So Parkland College here in Champaign, we offer a wide array of different credit and non-credit courses to students. We have a lot of different degrees and credit opportunities. Some of them are in our community education, and usually those are kind of one class that are focused on a specific area, like learning computer skills or maybe particular industry skills like forklift, or maybe some coding skills. And then we have our regular the main campus, which is going to be more your academic college credit side. So things that go to an associate's degree, or maybe some smaller classes that are focused in a specific area. SWFT is a scholarship program that's funded by the Illinois Community College Board. And so we sit under Parkland College and kind of have our own funding to help sponsor students to go through short-term certification programs. So programs that are 1 year or less, that at the end of it, you get a certificate that you can say, hey, I completed these courses and I have this credential at the end of it. We try to recruit from certain underrepresented populations. So Black, African American, we try to enroll people who are under $15 an hour, because we want to get those credentials to kind of get you into a living wage after receiving the credential and out into the workforce. I am a career counselor for the SWFT program. I just started in June. So I've kind of been learning a bit about the program and kind of coming up with new ideas on how we can support students who are in our program to kind of solidify their application materials and get a job once they're done. So what exactly is a certificate? And there's also something called certifications, and they're not quite the same thing. And a lot of times I think they can get confused. So a certificate is a result of an educational process. You go to classes, you learn things from textbooks or an online seminar. Usually anyone can sign up for a certificate program. It's usually open enrollment. If you're interested in it, you probably can enroll without having to meet any specific requirements to do so. And when you're done with it, it usually just says you completed this coursework or these series of courses in a certain area. That's really just kind of what the certificate says, is that you completed a certain amount of classes. It's an academic content, so the course is kind of set on what you learn, and that's kind of the basis for what the certificate is. You can list it on a resume, but usually it's under the education section. There's obviously more than one way to write a resume, but typically it's listed underneath where you would list all of your schooling and academic items. And it does, when you list it, demonstrates knowledge of course content. You know X, Y, and Z because you learned X, Y, Z in this course. And a lot of times it will be what a couple classes that build into a larger degree program usually. Most certificates are a portion of like an associate's degree. And this is usually how they work, and they can stack with other certificates to build up to something. A certification, on the other hand, is usually a result of an assessment process. So you either take an online supervised exam, you go on site and demonstrate particular skills. It's usually more based on how you handle certain situations, how you process through and work through different troubleshooting or real life scenarios, instead of just taking a test and saying these things. Certifications often require experience. A lot of them require you to have worked in insurance. You have to have worked a certain number of hours to sit for certain exams before you can even be eligible to sign up to take it. Like I said, the exam is usually the basis on how you are measured on whether you succeed or not. And it's based by the industry. So there's kind of just a consensus among, if you're in the insurance industry, this is what the industry recognizes as a credential that we will all recognize, and you can go anywhere and they will all recognize, yes, this credential from this body, we know that you know X, Y, and Z, and they can trust that. Certificates, everyone can have their own certificate program. There can be different things in it. And so a lot of times businesses and companies don't really like certificates sometimes, because what's in it can change depending on where you took it at. Whereas certifications are standardized across the board. A lot of times certifications will give you those credentials at the end of a name, CPA, and some others. It's usually tied to the end of a title like you would have in an email signature. Certifications also, usually it's not just you take the test and pass it, but to stay certified, you have to usually continue to be engaged in that area of your field by doing continuing education units or CEUs. So a lot of times there will be certain things that you have to attend seminars or go to classes or do things in your business or line of work that continue to keep you up to speed of what's going in the field and kind of show that you're continuing to stay active as a member in that community. Certifications also don't usually stack to any sort of college education or higher education degree. They're usually just standalone that work in the field, but very seldom give you college credit or anything towards that. So some examples of what we do in SWFT is for certifications is we have a medical billing and coding certification. So the description, it would be with the medical billing career prep program, you'll gain the skills you need to enter one of the fastest growing fields in allied health as a medical billing specialist. So if you were to enroll in this program, you would enroll it, you'd pass the course, and then you, at the end of it, you would register for a national exam that is separate from the course. If you take and pass that certification exam, you would gain the certificate, the medical and billing coding certificate. So that is an example. You don't have to necessarily prove that you've done so many different coding hours. You don't have to sit in a different exam room where they present you problems and you have to do it on the spot. You're not really assessed on that. You're just kind of given a test saying, I know X, Y, and Z, and then you get your certificate. Another certification that we offer that's probably the most popular one we do with SWFT is the CDL. The certification, so we go through the program. You don't have to have commercial driving experience. You do need to be over 21 and have a valid Illinois driver's license for us to go through the SWFT program. You enroll in the class, you take the state permit tests, then you meet the certain requirements for, you have to observe so many hours of other people driving the truck, troubleshooting, applying the course materials, and you have to do them yourself. And then once you're done, you can take and pass your state CDL exam. And the CDL exam is kind of the end certificate on that program. For certificates, the last two were certifications. And then, so you're certified, it's industry recognized, it's kind of the same across the board. You get a CDL license, it's going to be recognized across the state of Illinois. Some certifications are only for a particular state that you're in. Some apply across the US. So knowing in your field, is this certificate or certification good for my state, or is it good for the US, or maybe sometimes it's regional, like the Midwest. Those are things to keep in mind. For certifications, we have a Google IT support professional. It prepares you for entry-level IT support, help desk. Someone calls in with basic troubleshooting, you'd be the first person they talk to. And this is what this certificate would prepare you for. So you enroll in the Google IT class, and then you gain the skills and knowledge from taking those classes. And at the end of it, you receive the certificate. You've passed all your quizzes and tests and successfully, you get the certificate. Now, this is why certificates can be a little confusing from certifications, because in this class, you get the certificate, you completed all the coursework, you passed all the tests, you get a Google IT certificate. But at the end of it, you also can take a certification exam for something called CompTIA A+, and that's basically an industry recognized IT help desk service-oriented IT credential that is recognized across the US. The Google IT is definitely, it's a very big name, but at the end of the day, it is still a certificate. Not everyone recognizes that Google IT certificate as, a golden standard. It's up to each business to choose, do we want to accept people with this certificate or not? Whereas this A+ certification is something that's been around for a while and is industry recognized. Office Assistant is one other program I'm going to highlight. We have more than these, but this is another good one that I think is useful too. So Office Assistant, you build foundational office skills. Microsoft, we cover Word, PowerPoint, Publisher, all of those things. And because it's a certificate program, these are all classes that give you college credit. And these are this certificate is part of a 2-year program. If you want to continue your education, you can get an associate's in business administrative technology if you want to continue taking classes, even after getting your office assistant certificate. And what you gain from this certificate, you learn skills and competencies from all the different Microsoft applications, from customer service, business etiquette, how to enter in information into spreadsheets, things like that. And then you can use those credits that you earned to do maybe a larger degree if you decided to continue to go on. You also, because of the knowledge that you learned and the certificate you gained, you can also apply to be certified in Microsoft applications that you learned during that process. Parkland has a lot more certificate programs, and I've just listed some. There's even more than is on this page. Not all of them are eligible for SWFT. If I'll show you our website later so you can find which ones are SWFT sponsored, but there's a lot of different certificate programs that Parkland offers. We have things in healthcare, business and IT, construction and manufacturing, and some other options as well in kind of automotive. We have construction, we have agriculture, we have networking, we have various forms of different healthcare, whether it's particular skills that you might want to add on to your healthcare experience that you already have, or maybe you want to be a nurse assistant, but you don't have any healthcare experience. There's a kind of a wide variety of certificates that kind of can fit into where you're already at in your career. So you're like, maybe you're thinking, okay, I want to move from where I'm at. I want to learn some skills to kind of move my career path from where it's at. I'm kind of stuck in a spot. I want to change. I want to get into something new, or maybe kind of move up the ladder. So start asking yourself some questions about the length of certificate. How long is it going to take me to complete it? It depends. Some certificate programs, you just attend an all-day session, and at the end of it, you get a certificate. Sometimes things like that I could think of would be like CPR or some mental health. I think we have a mental health program that you basically come for a weekend, you attend some sessions, and you get a certificate. But some of them can be up to a year. We also have a welding certificate that takes 2 semesters, and that is, you know, something that we're hoping to have in the spring for SWFT, but we will see when the new calendar year rolls around if that's something we can offer. But that is something that would be up to a 1-year program that at the end of it, you still get that certificate. Some offer college credit, some do not. The welding, the office assistant are 2 things that you get the certificate that you get college credit for and kind of fit into a larger associate's degree. But the billing and coding, our CDL, we have a forklift certificate as well. Those are things that you attend the classes and you get a certificate at the end of it, but there is no college credit involved in those. So just kind of looking at which program you're trying to apply for will tell you whether or not it's a college credit course or whether it's just a general education course that you get a certificate at the end of. Now, are all certificates created equal? And that's kind of a complicated question. I would say no, they're not all created equal, because quite frankly, anyone can come up with a certificate program and say, hey, we have this set of classes, and at the end of it, you get such and such certificate. It doesn't really need to be backed up by anybody. It doesn't have any particular weight to it. There's no standard across business lines or corporate or, you know, healthcare for just most certificate programs. Some definitely do have that backing, but not all of them do. And so I just want to put that out there, that just because it's a certificate doesn't automatically mean that businesses or companies are going to recognize it. So some things to look for when you are applying is if it's industry recognized credentials. So you're thinking about maybe becoming a personal trainer. In the field of personal training, are there specific credentials that field requires? Do you need a certification in the first place to be a personal trainer? And then is it something that, you know, is local, or can you take it out of state with that same credential. For local agreements, sometimes businesses in the local area will team up with other employers or colleges like Parkland to have kind of an informal agreement that recognizes certain certificate programs. So the best example I have is our forklift program. There's not necessarily an industry-wide forklift certification program that's recognized all across the state. But when we made the program here at Parkland, we consulted local business partners, some of the big employers in the area, and we asked them, hey, what is it you want to see in people who are applying to be a forklift operator? And we took all that feedback from all of these different employers and made sure that this certificate that we offer, we include all of the skills that they're looking for in that. So we kind of have that informal recognition from local partners that, oh yes, I know that people from Parkland's forklift operating program have a certain standard of things that they've learned when they come to apply to us. So you can ask employers if you're not sure if they would recognize certain certificates, going into them and asking, hey, if I did this class, would this benefit me in my application? If that's somewhere you think you want to end up, would probably be the best way to find out if that's the case. You could also go to whoever's sponsoring the certificate and say, hey, when I complete this, what does it open the door for me? Who do you have partnerships that recognize this certificate? And you can ask that of whoever's offering it. One important other thing to think about is when you're thinking about applying to a certificate program, do you really need it? Education is important, knowing things is important, but sometimes the certificate won't make or break whether you get that job or not. It might help, but it might not be the be all end all to get in that position. So take an inventory on where you're trying to go, and then once you know the direction you're trying to going, is this really the only thing that is in the way to moving to that step? In other words, if you're here, you're trying to get here, is the certificate the only thing that bridges this gap? If it's not, what other things could you maybe potentially consider as well? Or if you think the certificate does bridge that gap, how does it do that? Make sure that you have a really solid understanding of why does this certificate in particular make me able to apply to this job successfully, where not having it doesn't. So just make sure that you understand what the business is looking for and how this certificate really is necessary to apply for that higher position or different position. Another thing to keep in mind is just to see if you're looking for a certificate program, see if it's all part of a larger degree. A lot of even entry-level jobs are trying to find people with multiple years of experience, with people with associate's degrees, sometimes both associates and previous work experience. So, everyone's educational path looks different, but a lot of employers are kind of asking for that 2-year degree as kind of a way to filter out people. Whether that's a good model or not is a story for a different day. But if that is something that you'd be interested in, look to see, okay, if I get this certificate, that's great, I can start working somewhere. But, 5 years down the road, maybe I want to keep moving up. Can I add these college credits to a bigger degree that'll help me even more? So maybe thinking long-term too might be a good way to view some of these certificate programs. Another way you could use your certificate is definitely add it to your resume. Regardless of what the certificate is, definitely add it to your resume. Makes you look good. You went out of your way to take a class you didn't have to. You can write the knowledge on. It's a conversation starter. It kind of distinguishes you differently from other people who might be applying for the same job who haven't taken an additional certificate program. And I would highly recommend also, when you're adding things to your resume, a lot of improvement could be made by talking to someone who's a career professional. I know Champaign Library is definitely a big proponent of that, is that just kind of making your application materials look nice and neat and streamlined goes a long way to people who are in HR offices looking at resumes, 100 resumes a day. Just having something that stands out from a bunch of people who didn't meet with a career advisor beforehand, and then also having a certificate on there, just those two things alone will move you way up the line as far as getting a real person to kind of actually see and review your resume and give it some serious thought. And when you're impressed, you can impress potential employers. Maybe some people like to go network. I would recommend there's some places that you really want to make a connection with. Make a phone call, maybe visit them in person, depending on what the business is. And if they have kind of like a front guest reception area, you can go in and say, hey, I just completed the certificate program at Parkland College, and I was looking to see if you had any openings that I could use this newly gotten certificate at, and kind of make that connection in that conversation that follows. Point out, hey, I've learned these skills, or I can't wait to apply what I've learned to the workplace. Kind of emphasize what you've learned, why you're excited to use it from that certificate that you just got. And also, when you're enrolled in a certificate program, usually it's not just you. You're usually there with instructors, with other classmates, maybe some other people who've worked in different fields and are kind of looking to change directions. So you can use this class as kind of connecting with them, hear their stories about maybe their career paths and how it's changed and what they're looking forward to. Talk to the instructors, see how they got where they're at, and maybe things that they know about the industry that you might not know. What's a typical career path, or what should I expect in an interview, or what can I do with this in 5 years down the line? Those are all things that you can gain from kind of going to the certificate and networking and asking questions from other people or who are there with you, and just kind of learning different perspectives to from the job search to what your job skills are. Again, just to highlight some checklists, some big items of when you're looking at certificate and certification programs. Make sure it's industry recognized. You don't want to waste your money on a certificate program that nobody really recognizes. So make sure to check what employers want. Make sure, if there's like a national certifying body, that you're taking one of those tests and who recognizes that. Is it locally needed? Sometimes there's certifications that, across the US, there's a lot of job openings, but where you're at, there's really not. So check what your local employment trends are, and to make sure that they kind of match like national ones. You don't want to get a certificate because, oh, I've heard medical billing and coding is really good and great. And then you look to see what local employers have and realize, oh, they don't really want people with that certificate. So always kind of check where you're trying to go, and then try to see what certificate helps you get there, instead of choosing the certificate first and then hoping to end up somewhere else. Kind of always start with the job side first, and then ask yourself, how do I get there? So, and then, yeah, double check what the qualifications are. It's different. Carle Hospital has different requirements for what their nursing assistants have for a credential than maybe a local nursing home might have. So make sure to see what jobs you're qualified for once you're done with the program, so you're not wasting your time applying to jobs or hoping that you'll get a job that you don't meet the minimum requirements for. And then lastly, can you keep building your certification up? So before enrolling, ask about opportunities to continue building your credentials through work and education. A lot of workplaces, especially even more as people are desperate to kind of retain employees, are offering different tuition reimbursement programs for their employees. So when you're thinking about where you want to work, see if they have a tuition program that if you work full-time there for so many years, maybe they pay for a certain certification, or so, they pay X dollars a year for you to continue in school. Sometimes there's usually conditions to that where, maybe you have to do something that's related to what you're already doing. Maybe it's only they'll pay for one class a semester, or, each business is different as far as what those are, but more and more businesses are kind of working that into their benefit structure. So definitely keep that in mind when you're looking, if you want to continue your education after a certification. See if you can add it to your college credits and kind of get a head start on that. But also, does this employer let me continue building on that? And then how much do they help with that? If there's any questions, you can go ahead and type them or ask them now. Also, for questions on Parkland certifications or credential programs, or the SWFT specific ones, you can email us at admissions@parkland.edu, or you can call their number at 217-351-2482, and they'll direct you in the direction you need to go, whether it's for the community education, for regular Parkland classes. If you're looking specifically for the SWFT scholarship program, they'll direct you to us, and we can answer any specific questions you have about our program as well.
All right. Well, thank you, Jordan. That was great. We appreciate your time.
Glad to be here.
Let me share my screen for just a minute. Oops. There we go. Well, here is my contact information if you didn't catch the other one. Same name, different person. But yeah, that was wonderful. And here at the library, we're also helping with resumes and cover letters and practice interviews, things like that. So if you want to get in touch, here's my email and my phone number. So once again, thank you, Jordan, for joining us, and everyone who's attended. Our next career workshop will be in person, and it will be Design Your Career. We will be hosting local career coach Kevin Martledge of Next Year Advisors, who will actually be here at the library on Tuesday, September 7th at 10 a.m. This workshop will focus on aligning your career with your personal interests and goals, and ultimately helping you develop your career action plan. And then I have the listings for career workshops here in September. So the first 3 here will be in person here at the library. And then the last workshop will actually be a webinar on a Tuesday evening. But we have a lot more webinars and workshops related to our business series, our technology series, our writers workshops, our crafty adults. So please visit champaign.org/events for more information. And once again, this is the same slide we had up at the beginning. If you didn't catch the Parkland contact information or my contact information, you can email us at librarian@champaign.org, and it will eventually get to me. On my video. So once again, Jordan, thank you for your time. And thank everyone to whoever's joined us or who will be watching this later through the recording. So I think I'll go ahead and end the webinar. I hope everyone enjoys their afternoon. Take care. Bye-bye.